Welcome to the third video in the FromSoftware style inspired design series. Today I'm going to show you guys probably the simplest method I've found to make hands and feet in Blender. This is our head, limbs and torso model from the last video. We're going to start by adding a new object so we can work on the hands separately. Then we can move and extrude the vertices to form a rough polygon representing the top of the palm from the front view. If you hold your mouse in your right hand, you can use your left hand as reference. We can use the loop cut tool to divide this polygon into 4 faces, one for each finger. We can add a subdivision surface modifier and extrude the rightmost vertex down to form the rough outline of the thumb. The thumb connects quite far down, all the way at the bottom of the palm. And in fact, the bones actually connect to the wrist bones, rather than the hand bones like the fingers. Because of this, it could be useful for outlining the bounds of the hand. The fingers start off with primitive rectangular shapes, to give us an idea of their relative lengths and widths. Once you're happy with their rough outline, you can start filling in the faces, as this will allow us to add more loop cuts for more detail. Dragging down the vertices on the edge of the fingertip will give them a more slender look. To give us more geometry to work with, you can select the edges in between the fingers and bevel them. Make sure to select Auto Merge Vertices from the top menu, as this will allow overlapping vertices to automatically merge, which is especially useful when sliding them into each other with G. To aid deformation when rigging, we need to create these triangular shapes for the knuckles. This can also help with the positioning of the knuckles, and we can add more cuts with the knife tool. We use triangles to connect the knuckles to the rest of the hand, and to save in our polygon count. Then we can fill in the faces for the thumb and the rest of the hand. To see how many vertices we want to end up with, you can check the end of your wrist on your body model. With our hand plane complete, we can duplicate it along the x-axis, and start adding some thickness to our fingers. To aid the subsurface calculation, you may need to recalculate normals. Now we can pull out the vertices to more clearly refine the cylindrical shape of our fingers, and to more clearly define the front and back of the hand, or the top and the palm. To do this, on the top we're going to pull out the knuckles, and create a more elevated shape, and create more of a cup shape on the palm. The thumb sits on a plane in front of the fingers, so you need to pull it forward to represent this. We'll use this opportunity to refine the shape of the thumb itself as well. filling out the vertices, and also adding more flesh to where it meets the palm. To improve the look of our fingertips, we can extrude some faces inwards to give us more geometry to work with, and then move the vertices to give us a more rounded shape. Now our hand is shaping up quite nicely. Rounding out the wrist of the hand can help you better evaluate the extrusion and thickness you need. By selecting faces on the front of the fingertips and extruding them, we can make some basic fingernails. Not only will this make our fingers look more realistic, but it mainly helps when proportioning them into their 3 parts. Now we can add loop cuts along the finger for the second knuckle. The first bone in the finger is roughly the same length as the other 2 combined, and we can bevel these loop cuts to add some more geometry, which will aid deformation. We're going to model our finger joints similarly to our knee and elbow joint, forming this kind of structure to make them bend more realistically. At this stage, we can also use proportional editing to adjust the finger position and make them look more natural. I wasted a lot of time trying to adjust the thumb connection to the rest of the hand, and I realized that I actually just needed to add another loop cut to give me more vertices to work with. Just like with the fingers, we're once again going to add more inset faces to the knuckle of the thumb. If it is called that, I really don't know. Now that our hand is complete, we can add it to our model. You need to adjust your hand's pose to match our wrist pose, so that they connect correctly. Before joining the models, it's a good idea to duplicate your hand. And then you can just select both of them and right-click, join. Then we can pull apart the edges and start merging the faces in between. Because we have slightly more vertices in the hand, we may need to merge some of them to match the wrist. We'll adjust the vertices to smooth out the transition a bit, and make the hand look more continuous with the wrist. It's often surprising how effective just adding the hands is in making your model look a bit more human and a bit more alive. I think the hand is just such an easily recognizable structure, and it's definitely very associated with humans. We can also use this opportunity to adjust the proportions a bit, and stronger characters usually have bigger hands and wider arms, so you can adjust your model in edit mode to represent this. Now the section you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, the feet. Once again, we'll start with a plane and divide it into another polygon shape. This time we're going to be modeling based on the right foot. And we're going to create the classic curved sole silhouette. Again, just made out of these simple shapes. Unlike how we started the hand, we're going to add loop cuts to divide it into 5 parts, because you have 5 toes. As you can see, a lot of the process is very similar. Again, blocking out the toes. I'm using quite long toes here, just because it's quite hard to model on a small surface. And again, beveling the inside to give them a proper kind of gap. Now, you won't do it straight away, but the big toe is quite a lot bigger than the rest of the toes. It's almost like a thumb on your foot. But even then, your thumb isn't twice as big as your fingers. But for now, we'll adjust it separately. Despite appearances, your little toes actually have two joints, despite only looking like they have one. And your big toe actually does have one, so make sure to add loop cuts to represent this. Since you want to cut down on geometry for the foot plane, I'm going to add loop cuts using the knife tool instead of the actual loop cut tool. And this is just so I can more easily work with the vertices and how they connect. Again, we're going to need to form triangles to reduce the geometry, but this can also help forming the shape of the foot bones. Once again, now that our individual toes have more geometry, we can adjust their shape, and I like to give them this kind of double tapered look. I'm going to slide the edges around the heel together, again just to reduce our vertices, and make it easier to manipulate the shape here, as having too many vertices can make it a bit awkward. And we'll form the kind of knuckles. Again, I'm not sure if that's the right word for the toe knuckles, but you guys know what I mean, so. Okay, and now we can add our thickness by duplicating the plane and filling in the faces in between. Again, you may need to recalculate normals. Unlike the hand, the difference between the sole of the foot and the top of the foot is way more obvious, as you need to pull out the vertices quite a lot to represent the foot arch and the ankle connection. This can look a bit distorted for now, but we will add more loop cuts in the future. Not only is our big toe much bigger and wider than the other toes, but it's also taller, and so you'll need to pull it out a bit more than the others. I'm going to delete the faces here and form a circular shape where our ankle will connect. Holding Ctrl-Tab and selecting Sculpt Mode, and choosing the Elastic Deform or Grab brush, can also help us when adjusting the fine shape of our foot. Now we can repeat the same structure motif we've used for all the previous joints. Unfortunately, I did these steps a little out of order, because now we need to add our loop cuts, and it doesn't actually run across the triangles. So we'll just need to add them where we can, and then use the knife tool to bridge the gap. And then we can slide the vertices into each other to form the shape we want. Because our toes are so close together, it can be kinda hard to see the sides. One trick to get around this is pressing Alt-B to create a view exclusion zone. I'm unhappy with where the side of my foot transitions to the top, so I'm going to bevel this edge to give me some more geometry to work with, so I can make the angle more gradual. The edge loops on the side of the foot are way too close together as we move away from the toes, so we need to slide them apart, allowing us to give the surface more variation. As a final touch, we're going to once again extrude the toenails, in a similar method to the one we used for the fingers. Now we can connect the foot to the ankle. The foot requires a bit more adjustment than the hand, such as scaling along the z-axis. You might also want to drag the vertices closer together in edit mode, or using proportional editing. Now when we try and fill in the faces, this weird thing happens. And this is because our geometry of our foot is actually on the opposite side to our body. To fix this, we can just apply the mirror modifier, and then delete 1/2. Then we can just add the mirror modifier back again. Now we can just connect the faces like normal, merging the vertices on the foot to match the ankle. Adding a floor plane can help us view the feet in their natural environment, so we can make any adjustments needed. This can help with things like making sure the feet are flat or in the right proportion. I realized a major problem with our current model, and that's the toe is way too far to the other side. The big toe sits nearly in front of the ankle to support the weight properly. You can also adjust the flesh around the side of the little toe to make the feet look like they're being flattened as they come in contact with the ground. I'll also make some minor adjustments to the curve of the surface, dropping it quite a bit on the little toe side. Additionally, we can make sure that the gap between the big toe and the rest of the toes is much larger than the gap between themselves. Now I think their shape looks really good, although their size is still a bit off, so I'll scale them down to make them match the ankle a bit more. I'm also going to scale down the toes, as they're a little too long still. Now we just have to adjust the ankle a bit to smooth out the transition. And with that, our character base mesh is complete. In the next video, I'll take you through the sculpting process, adding fine detail like the musculature. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.